Hey, I'm your host, TheDoctorDanko, come on in. You've been missing out, so let's begin. Pumpkin_crumb is your host here too. When you hear the beat, you know what to do. Why didn't you warn me? Why didn't you warn me now? Why didn't you warn me? Why didn't you warn me? Hey. Good evening and welcome to Why Did Not You Warn Me? What was that about? I'm your host, Matthew, the Dr. Danko.
I'm Hillary Crumb and my mouth is full of chocolate zucchini bread.
And whose fault is that?
Probably yours.
You made the zucchini bread. You opted to eat it right before we started recording.
Isn't it your job as my significant other to make me feel better about myself and to take some of life's burdens?
That is not in my job description, and I have not accepted that responsibility.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen, and Mrs. Danko.
Real quick, though, I listened to the most recent episode of guys talking about shit that I was on.
You were on it, right? That's why you listened to it, because you're selfish.
No, I listened to their other episodes, but I'm always curious how I come across on their episodes, because they do have video as well.
Like a dick, usually.
No. Don't make me rethink that. Or overthink it, rather.
Okay.
But then I listened to the episode following our episode, and Adam did this great thing, because Bobby is like the main host.
Are these like celebrities?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
They're podcast celebrities.
So not.
Hey, no, they are celebrities, and they're like
you got to defend
few
your boys,
of my best
I
friends.
understand.
Yeah. So like, I would say Bobby is the main host, and then Adam is his co-host.
The most and the coast.
Rice.
We're back.
It's been a long day. Why did not you warn me? But Bobby wasn't there when I was filling in, so Adam was in charge of, coming up with the content and like keeping the show going.
Sure.
And he bought us Dunkin' Donuts, which I thought was a wonderful thing.
Because you're a fan of donuts.
I'm a fan of donuts, and he was buying them because, for us to eat while we were doing the show. And then on the next episode...
He couldn't have made you zucchini bread?
No. On the next episode, Bobby comes back in, and he's like, you fucking, went back on, the one rule I have, which is no eating on the show, Adam. Why the fuck did you do that?
Right.
And I didn't process it. I was just like, this is great. I have donuts here, and I'm eating them. And, I'm very conscious when I'm doing that episode to be, making sure I'm not full of donut in my mouth.
Sure. I was.
Yeah.
Like a fool.
And then I find out that, that's one rule he has, and I felt like a dick.
It's not your fault. You didn't bring the donuts.
I know, but I could have said no.
Next time you guest over there, I'm going to send you with baked goods and
that's
say,
different.
love, why did not you warn me?
Yes, that'd be amazing. But we are back.
Sorry for the long hiatus.
Yeah, we keep doing that.
Life happens.
Yeah.
There's no good excuse.
There isn't.
Right.
You're only off on the weekends, and weekends are the busiest time at the job I have. So.
And last weekend we weren't even here.
Yeah,
so.
we were visiting your grandmother,
which was delightful.
Yeah. But so we're back. We're kind of just doing the episodes when we can.
Right. This whole project was to make us happy. So we're just doing it when we can without killing ourselves for it.
And I mean, I still hold myself to I'm trying to prepare as if we're going to do an episode every week. So there's still content I'm watching so we can talk about it and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I have a backlog of books and TV shows and stuff. But I mean, we're not going to beat ourselves up for it. Once a week would be ideal, but we were even talking about this, the concept of trying to schedule a day to do it so we actually stick to it. My schedule's pretty consistent, but yours isn't.
Mine,
so
it's all over the place.
We can't do it. And
yeah.
You know what? It's fine. You get it or you don't. It doesn't matter. It's our project, so fuck off.
But it did make me... It did make me think, because I listened to podcasts on my way to work. Did you hear that sound, or was that just through my headphones? No? Okay. My computer was making a sound.
Oh.
Okay. I just needed to know if I have to edit it out later. But so I listened to a podcast on my way to work, and it's a Red Dwarf podcast. based on the show that nobody really watches.
But they mention once in Buffy.
They do mention it once in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is what we're watching in our spare time. But I'm listening to their show. It's a pseudo-celebrity who, like, makes music, and just his friend that, like, has watched Red Dwarf on and off again all over the years. But I get frustrated with the episodes because they're not talking about the things that I would talk about if I were doing the episode, and then they're, like, very negative about certain things, and that's not my nature. I try to look for the good in a lot of... That's why I only listen to Kevin Smith podcasts. I was telling you this. Is because, you know, Kevin Smith, I mean, he's obviously one of my heroes, but he just... Instead of bashing things, because he's an artist himself and he knows people bash his shit all the time, instead of doing that, he does look for the good and positive things in certain things. And even if he doesn't like something, he usually can pull something good out of it.
Yeah, like my mom pushed on me for so long because I can write and because I'm, you know, I know a decent amount about theater. She was like, you should be a theater critic. And I sat there, like, watching plays and thinking, why, like... Those people worked really hard on that. Like, even if it's shit, I can have my opinion. I can talk to my friends about it. Yeah. But publishing something to be like, this sucked. Like, that, it's mean.
It is. It's not necessary. And so, like, I get really frustrated and upset when they're, like, shitting on episodes that I just adore.
Well, you love everything.
I know, which is, you know, can be a fault.
You're the most generous viewer.
And I'm genuine as well.
Right.
Like, everything that I feel is coming from my childlike heart.
I know, honey. I'm already dating
you. No, I know. I'm just saying, like, I have this... they even said it on the Guys Talking About Shit podcast. They're like, you know, Danko's a pretty positive person, so I'm pretty sure they were talking about some San Diego Comic-Con stuff. But in the spare time, when we're not doing our podcast, on, like, my days off, when I am watching Red Dwarf, I'm thinking about doing... Matthew Danko podcast style, not, you know, the Matthew Danko podcast. Yeah.
Obvious. I was slow on that. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I was thinking
That's why
I
gave it a second go. Where it's sort of just me, like, reviewing the episodes of Red Dwarf, because, like, there aren't that many podcasts for Red Dwarf out there, and I get why, just because it's, like, a more hidden of a gem, but it has such a longevity to it, and it's still, like, new seasons are still being made, and, like, at its basis, it's a very cool sci-fi show that more people should watch. It would be nice to have a co-host on that show, but unfortunately, like I said, nobody watches it.
Right, so I couldn't even get through Doctor Who. I'm not going to get through, like, the niche Doctor Who.
It's not a niche Doctor Who, but...
The niche Star Trek.
Yes, it has been compared to Star Trek a lot, but it's just a very cool concept for a television show. But I won't get into that. I'm sure I've done it a few times already on this show, and probably on the Matthew Danko podcast.
Don't call it that.
Thank you.
I was there.
I know. But yeah, I could bust out a few episodes of that show and then put them up on my leisure, and then at least we're still putting out content. But
you're still putting out content.
Our collective is still putting out content.
I'll write book reports or something.
Perfect. All right, so now that that's out of the way,
we have something really important to talk about before we even do, like, what we were reading or watching. This is important.
This is important. So, for many reasons.
I saw on Tumblr just, like, screen grabs of, I didn't know what it was, but it was John Mulaney talking to Jerry Seinfeld about John Mulaney's wife, quote, thinking she has a sense of interior decoration, and he of course defends his wife because he's a good person and isn't, you know what, we'll get into it in a second. But so it was part of a show called Comedians in a Car. Comedians getting coffee in cars? Cars getting coffee?
In a car, yeah, in cars getting coffee.
Which, first of all, what the fuck? And it's Jerry Seinfeld. I can't pretend to know a lot about the show because I only watched the one episode.
Okay, I can tell you everything about the show just based on the episode. The one episode that we watched.
I was going to try to do that, but I figured you would slam me for not having watched any more than that. Okay.
I don't.
So Jerry Seinfeld
I know exactly what this show is.
Jerks off near it. And
okay. That would be far more entertaining to watch.
I don't think so.
It would, for many reasons.
I don't want to think about that
anymore.
All right,
well, you brought it up. Anyways, so what happens is... at the beginning of every episode, Jerry Seinfeld must introduce this very unique vehicle, because he's a car guy, apparently. And picks this particular vehicle for the guest that's going to be on the show, which is a celebrity, a comedian. Yeah, specifically. And it's exactly what the title suggests. Yeah. Because they're literally in a car, and then they go get coffee, and the whole episode,
run, like, a singular errand.
And they're just talking. So it's basically the show Seinfeld, where nothing happens, but it's very guerrilla style shot, because like it's mostly handheld camera work.
What's the James Corden one?
Where they do karaoke in the vehicles?
Carpool karaoke.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's what you want it to
be. That's entertaining.
But, right. This isn't. Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
it's
like,
not
so
good.
Where the show Seinfeld was a show about nothing, but it's a sitcom, so the crazy happenstance seem more organic, but because these people are also like self-indulgent, I'll use your word, or like...
Great.
What's another word for that?
Selfish?
Selfish.
Self-involved.
Or egotistical even. Yeah. They come into all these weird scenarios based on how they're interacting with other people in this world of New York City that they've sort of created for themselves. So it's exactly like that because it takes place in New York City. But it seems like Jerry Seinfeld, who I used to love from watching Seinfeld. Like, right. I watched it growing up.
I grew up with Seinfeld. Yeah. Not the way... I mean, I watched, like, a dozen episodes total,
but,
maybe.
Yeah.
Actually be funny, but the problem is that humor has evolved.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this a lot in reference to Michael Schur, specifically.
Yeah,
Shows
exactly.
like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Parks and Rec.
Yeah, television has evolved, and so has the comedy that's been driving it.
And Jerry Seinfeld has not evolved. And he was even quoted, like, a couple of years ago as saying that he refused to perform on college campuses anymore because everything's too politically correct. And it's like, sorry, you can't make jokes at the expense of minorities anymore, but, like...
Yes. So to a point... Obviously, you shouldn't attack groups of people. I do get the idea in some cases, not all cases, because, you know, you can be funny without being offensive.
Yeah.
I do get in some cases where off-colored jokes, again, not at the expense of groups of people, can be funny.
They serve a purpose.
Yes.
They just, like, yeah.
I mean, it is where, like, our humor today... It has evolved from what that once was because we've, you know, as a culture have evolved as well.
Like one of the jokes that gets pointed to a lot as like an example of sort of off color but not at the expense of a group. On Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Holt and his husband's wedding, they rush through it and they like they're like, we're married, it's done. And like, because they were worried that gay marriage was going to get overturned before they could get legally married. Yeah. And, like, that's kind of a weird political joke, but it's not at the expense of gay people.
Exactly.
Like, so there is a way to do it,
and it's mostly, you know, all the, I mean, Jerry Seinfeld is one perpetrator of this type of joke.
Right,
but,
obviously there are others.
You know, the take my wife please jokes. Where, you know, we just, a married couple, I hate my wife and she just nags me and wants me to take out the garbage and I just want to watch the game. Like, I used to watch television, like, during the day in the summers, and they would do Comedy Central Presents, where it's like 5 or so comics get on stage and do their 10 minutes or whatever. And, like, all the male comedy guys, the comedians...
Comedy guys.
Comedy guys.
That's my band.
And like all the 1 hour specials with like up and coming comedians.
Right.
A lot of the jokes revolve around their relationships.
They're crazy.
Where it just paints relationships as like a shit thing to do.
Right.
Relationships, as it were.
You will.
But
yeah, and Seinfeld is very much Jerry Seinfeld the man.
The
not
man.
Seinfeld the show.
No.
Probably Seinfeld the show
there's
too,
a lot,
but
because again, it's during that time.
Let's just say from this point forward, when I say Seinfeld, I'm referring to the man. Not the show. So yeah, Seinfeld is very much of that time period, and he has not evolved.
Yeah, and the show itself, even rewatching episodes today, a lot of it is funny because a lot of it is uncomfortable situational humor. Not all of it is like, you know, I I can't, you throw like a girl and like you're not a man. I mean, some of it is like the episode where George is like coming out of the pool and he's changing, and there's a woman that comes in when he's changing and sees him naked and laughs because there was shrinkage and all this other stuff, like stuff like that.
Yells shrinkage.
Yeah, because it's a very quotable Seinfeld thing. Like, some of it is funny.
Some of it's funny.
But yes, a lot of sitcoms out of the 90s and early 2000s, I'm obviously even further back, is about the, my wife is annoying and she's a bitch.
And John Mulaney's whole shtick is about how much he adores his wife. Yeah. And, like, he makes fun of her, but in a way, not in a way that, like, I hate her, and if it was legal to murder her, I would. But in a way that, like, it's so cute that she does this thing that's so stupid, but I love it.
Yeah.
So putting the two of them together.
Two comedians, like... And I've only just started watching John Mulaney because of you.
Right.
I was aware of him because he did have his television show and everything.
Theater, like, backstage people, for whatever reason, have latched on to John Mulaney.
Yeah. And, he is very much a main star, a mainstream comedian from today's comedy.
Right.
And Jerry Seinfeld is very much of the old comedy. So, yeah, they're at two different spectrums of the comedy line, and
it's just worlds colliding.
Yeah, like seeing them interact, and like, so you texted me when you were watching this, because you watched this episode twice.
I watched it this afternoon, and it was the weirdest 20 minutes of my life, and I was like, I need Matt to experience this too, so I'm not alone.
Exactly.
And then we
watched it when I got home,
like an hour ago,
and it is weird. But
you talk about it cinematically, because that was where you wanted to start.
The show itself is weird, which gives the tone of the show a very weird feeling, because it is very much, there's not a plot to it. It's just them talking. It's somewhat like a podcast visually.
It's like Jerry Seinfeld has his own fucking YouTube channel.
It is very much Jerry like Seinfeld, a YouTube show, and maybe it was. I don't know what it was before, but it's very like, I want to take these comedians to get coffee, to run an errand, and he pays for like everything. I guess it's very, and we haven't watched any of the episodes, but I would imagine since it's his show and he's inviting these people, that this is usual for the episodes where he's literally showing like his credit card as he's paying for, like, what do you want in this convenience store? Oh, Tic Tacs, that's great, and I'll buy them. And he's getting out his wallet, and like, maybe it's just because it's like happening in semi-real time, so we're seeing everything that's happening. But
the stuff that usually gets like skipped over in TV shows.
But we're living it, and so I don't know if it's necessary that we're seeing Seinfeld pay for everything. But there is a conversation about his credit card at one point.
He tells this like elaborate
joke?
I guess.
About his black credit card and the company that makes it, and I don't know.
One of the keep talking about cinema,
so
because I have a lot to say about the content.
And as I was saying, visually it's very guerrilla style in the fact that it's all handheld, and like the way the people aren't really composed in the shots, like him and John Mulaney, who are the subjects of the shot. Like sometimes their heads will be covered like at a low angle, like it's just like very bizarre.
Up his nostrils at one point.
Yeah.
Like, what?
And it jumps around from them like going to the convenience store to being in the vehicle to like going to buy a rug to being back in the vehicle and like then going to get coffee.
We saw that coffee place's logo 4 times, I counted.
Yeah. And maybe that's how they pay for the show. Maybe it's all just
pays for it.
Yeah. But, like, the show itself, even for a show that's literally about nothing, like, I would love for, and it's biased to say, but if Kevin Smith were doing the same thing, I would probably love it 10 times more.
I think that if Kevin Smith and John Mulaney did that show, it would be great.
Yeah,
I think that we would love watching it, because they would actually like talking to each other.
Right, and Kevin Smith, to use him as an example, he knows how to interview people. He's interviewed a lot of people. He does the IMD boat during San Diego Comic-Con and like interviews tons of celebrities and does San Diego Comic-Con panels and shit like that. So he knows how to talk to another person in like the,
Not
what
in,
are
like,
your views?
sitcom language?
Yeah, exactly. Like, even if you want to tell jokes and be funny,
there's a way to do it
Yeah.
where the other person is involved and not just also there.
Yeah. So
And that, like, that...
No. So, yeah, we're going to talk about John Mulaney's part.
So that's what it felt like, where Seinfeld thought that he was in control of the situation and John Mulaney was also there. They were not playing off of each other.
Right.
Which, like, you'd think...
Not entirely.
Not for
long enough.
Not for most of it. Like, the problem that I had with watching it is that Seinfeld is not a generous scene partner. So, like, he was interrupting John Mulaney a lot. And he also, like, they weren't, like, with comedy, you can, like, bat it back and forth. And Seinfeld, he just wasn't playing.
Yeah, even though with the idea of the show, even the title of it presents to me, is that this show is about the comedian that's the guest that week. That it's very much focused on them. That's why he picks the car for whatever, which the voiceover describing this vehicle went on for freaking ever. And it just felt weird because there's no other voiceover throughout the rest of the episode. But, so, every time, Jerry Seinfeld is sparking the conversation and, presenting these joke scenarios almost, so John Mulaney can answer, but Jerry Seinfeld is still, like, taking over and, like, being the front man, even though he should be, no pun intended, taking a back seat to let them...
Because that's what a host is sort of supposed to do, is like guide it to showcase the other person.
Right.
And like, I was going to say something, but I completely forgot. Oh, so there were questions that John Mulaney was asking Seinfeld that I'm just like, he told him to ask that. Like, that is not a question that comes up organically in conversation. That happened a couple times.
Where do you think you're going to be in 10 years or something like that?
Yeah, or like, how do you see
like
your
relevance.
last couple years? Yeah, and I'm like, what?
And he's the answer Seinfeld was giving felt very
It was very
rehearsed.
scripted. Yeah, he thought about that, and he wanted to be asked that question.
Right.
Which, like, again, that's not why you're here. You're there to ask John Mulaney questions.
And I'd love to know what John Mulaney thought of the episode. Like, that's the other problem, is because he likes working, he might not come out and be like, it was the worst experience I've ever had, because Jerry Seinfeld is such a big name in comedy, just based on his previous relevance, which isn't so much anymore, but
it's enough,
he carries
that he can
enough
ride it.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, people are hoping, so the bit in the carpet store where John Mulaney's wife has sent him on this errand to purchase a rug for their house.
Yeah.
And John Mulaney's like, and Anna, his wife, is so much better at these things because she, has a sense of what it's all going to look like together.
Yeah.
And Seinfeld is like, she thinks she does.
Yeah.
John Mulaney's like, no, she does.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting that his wife is an interior designer. That is her job.
Yeah.
So she knows what she's talking about. But, like, he wouldn't shut up. He was like, that's one of those things, like, all women think they're good at interior design and all men think they're funny. And John Mulaney was like, yes, they do.
Yeah, it was pretty, like, dead ass.
Yeah, yes, but, like, John Mulaney just he looked so uncomfortable. He
does look uncomfortable.
The whole time. And it's not just, like, he looks uncomfortable in a lot of situations.
Yeah, like, that's
but it was
his
more
face.
than that.
Yeah, and he seems like a very nice guy, just his persona that we've seen.
Awkward.
Yeah, like,
but in a very relatable way.
Exactly. And so I don't think he would ever say it, but he just, he looks super uncomfortable. And I think the other problem is, like, the funny that comes out of the Seinfeld show, where it is about nothing. Like, Larry David is I don't know if he's the sole creator or if he's just the creator and the writer with, Seinfeld's input. But Larry David also did Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is basically like a real-life version of Seinfeld. So it's filmed like almost like a reality show, but it's still scripted and everything. But it's the same sort of like show about nothing where shit just goes really crazy because he's interacting with people in a very, awkward way, and like comedy ensues. like, so this is like, it feels very much like just a Seinfeld project.
Yeah.
Where he's just like, well, I'm Jerry Seinfeld. You know my name.
Do this.
And I can do this, and I'm funny. And I haven't watched a lot of his stand-up in the later years. I watched the earlier stuff.
Because there were bits, like, at the beginning of the Seinfeld episode.
Yeah, and that's very similar to his actual, like, stand-up shit.
That's sort of what I figured. Like, that's sort of why I keep using this phrase self-indulgent. Because, I mean, at this point, Jerry Seinfeld can do whatever he wants to do.
Right, he has the name, the money, and and I get that now. In the beginning, it just seemed like a gimmick to talk about the person that was going to be on the show, but then I didn't see John Mulaney being showcased that much on the show as the guest.
He's just also there.
Because it seems like you could have put anybody in his position, and it doesn't matter what kind of car they chose.
Right.
Like, it's not about the guest, it's about Jerry Seinfeld.
Right,
which
and
is
marginally the car.
Opposite of, like, what you're trying to achieve.
Like, carpool karaoke.
Yeah.
Where it's about, oh my god, Lin-Manuel Miranda's in the car.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
And, you know, James Corden does a good job of talking to the person about, you know, whatever. But then brings in the musical element, which is like the gimmick or whatever.
Right. I don't know. I also don't know what the gimmick is for comedians in cars. Whatever.
Well, so like you have the gimmick of presumably
Jerry Seinfeld. Is he the gimmick?
It somewhat seems like it. Yeah. So again, having not seen any of the episodes, but since it was so important on this episode, they pick a car.
Right.
Partly because Jerry Seinfeld must like cars. And that's the car they're driving. But it reflects the person he's getting coffee with.
You'd think, but there was like a brief line about, I knew this was the car for John Mulaney, and then there's just nothing else about it. Other than the fact that the car accidentally matched his coat.
Well, yes. But there's also something like the car, you don't expect something about this car, but it just is, and same thing with John Mulaney. Yeah. It was very quick.
Yeah, like not the focus.
Right.
Which it should have been.
But then again, throughout the episode, you don't really get to... Like, John Mulaney talks, but it feels like Jerry Seinfeld is overshadowing his talking. And it is just a show about talking. They literally do get coffee. They're just having a conversation about nothing in particular.
Right.
But...
there's not really a hook.
There isn't, and maybe there doesn't need to be. Maybe we need to watch more episodes with, like...
I have no interest,
I mean,
and that's part of the problem.
Kate McKinnon is on the next episode that I saw.
Zach Galifianakis was on the first one.
Yeah, I like him, but...
Yeah, I would watch Kate McKinnon before.
Right.
I would be curious to see how, you know, a feminist interacts
Yeah, I would like to see...
Seinfeld.
I mean, she is a very, you know, mainstream comedian now. I don't know if mainstream's the right word, but like she's Saturday Night Live,
right?
Like to be on there, and I don't know if she is on there. I haven't watched Saturday Night Live in so long, but I mean she's prominent in comedy,
right?
It would be cool to see how she does interact with them. If she, you know, just admires the guy because he's been a comedian.
Or if she takes the reins a little more.
Maybe. I would imagine with her personality she does.
I can't see her. Because, I mean, yeah, John Mulaney has, like, self-professed, I'm the kind of person where if you spill soup on me, I'll apologize to you.
Right. So maybe that's just his cars and coffee with comedians.
It was just, like, he just looked so uncomfortable.
He does.
It's also worth noting that I was sort of paying attention to when we were laughing when we watched it, because it was my second time through, and... like, unquestionably more of our laughter was at what John Mulaney said.
I noticed it, like, almost immediately.
Yeah, I mean, because that's our kind of humor.
Yeah. It was like when you walk into the high school lunchroom, and the girls just say, no. I was like, yep.
Seinfeld, like, tried to elaborate on that, and it just wasn't funny.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. We've moved on.
Right. It's very interesting. I would like to see how other people interact with it. I'm sure there are some good episodes worth watching. Not due to Seinfeld's hosting.
I posted on Facebook, similar to what I texted you, that it was like the weirdest 20 minutes of my life, and I might never get over it. And one of my friends commented that she hated it, and another friend commented that, because the other thing is that the John Mulaney episode is episode 9. It's not even like near the beginning. So she said, I watched a couple of uncomfortable episodes, and I don't think I could sit through any more to get to John Mulaney.
Yeah.
And I was like, honestly, it's not worth it.
No, I'd be curious who else has been on the show.
Yeah. Probably a lot of SNL people.
I'd imagine.
Those are sort of the most prominent comedians.
That, and it's
currently,
if they really do, stay in New York City.
Right. Yeah. That's
I would assume that they do, because that would cut down on a lot of other costs. But
right.
Yeah. So anybody that's New York based,
right,
or is in town, it would be easy to get them on the show, because again, it's Seinfeld. Like, the name is just...
Yeah, that's enough of a draw, apparently.
It is. I mean, I don't want to take everything away from the guy. I just think he's done. I think he's been done for a while.
And the problem is that he has not realized it.
He hasn't. He can do what he wants with, his money and everything. He shouldn't, but he can.
Well, and the problem... One of the bigger problems that I have with him is that not only has he not realized he's irrelevant, but he's pouting about the way millennials are perceiving his humor. Which, like... It's not our fault that things have changed. Right.
I would like to, if he was an up-and-coming comedian back in the day, like, who he thought was irrelevant now and who he found funny then.
Right.
I'm sure it's somewhere you could find.
It shifts, just like popular culture shifts.
Like, I mean, at one point, like, The Honeymooners, it's my go-to. It was a black and white sitcom, but, like, one of the main jokes that, like, apparently got... it was almost a catchphrase of the main character. The Honeymooners was literally about a married couple.
Oh.
That's what the Flintstones is sort of based on, like the same style.
Wasn't that like a domestic abuse?
Yeah,
thing?
That's one of these days, Alice, straight to the moon or something like that. And he's like shaking his fist like he's gonna beat his wife. And like at some point throughout society, that was funny.
Right, and at some point, thankfully, we stopped thinking that was funny, which, thank God.
Yeah, like,
what a weird way to be a woman.
But
like,
that's weird to us now because, like, we've evolved as time has, and, I don't know. If we were back in the day, I mean, granted, if you were still this feminist that you are, back in the day, you wouldn't find it funny. But if we were,
find a man.
If we were like clean slate, we weren't influenced by the world yet,
right?
And we were living in that time, what we would find funny.
Yeah, because humor now, like, it's this weird, like, nihilistic, politically correct. It's so weird, and. Yeah, I mean, like, I have conversations with my mother about, like, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I mention, and, like, Amy's running through the streets in her wedding dress, and she tackled somebody, and it's so, like, you can still be performing femininity and still be a badass, and my mom is looking at me like I'm speaking in Chinese. And
no, but it's, like, a very poignant thing in the episode, like...
And she just watches it, and she's like, isn't that Andy Samberg so funny? And I'm like... Yeah, but there's a lot more going on. There are 2 Latino women in the cast. Like, I don't mean to keep going back to Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but it's such a good encapsulation of current humor.
It is, like, and that's not to say, like, I also watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which is not politically correct at all. I think, though, in some of the ways that it isn't politically correct, it does achieve the idea, because, like, the show is set up where it's, like, it's almost like a darker Seinfeld, where the show, they get into crazy situations, and it is a little more amped up. They get into crazy situations, but the show isn't really about anything. It's just like these guys that own this bar, and then one of them comes in with news, and then they all hear it, and then they, like, comedy ensues. But they're terrible people as individuals. One of them is like a psychopath, like straight up, but the way they use their political incorrectness, if that's the term, it is now.
Yeah.
Sometimes highlights like problems and shit. Like it.
Like there's a way to do it.
Kind of. It almost like there's this whole. I was telling you, there's a whole episode where they're watching like The Wiz, which is the black. Musical of The Wizard of Oz, and they get like zapped by lightning through their VCR and their heated blanket or something. So they wake up and they're like feeling weird, and then they see their reflections, and they're all now African Americans. So now they're navigating the world as African Americans, but they don't understand, like.
How did they do that on screen? They didn't use blackface, did they?
No.
Okay.
I said they saw their reflections, and they were African American,
So
like
they're different
new
actors.
actors.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Like,
Yes, they use blackface, and now I'm here to defend this.
No, that's okay.
No.
Nobody heard about it. But
Anytime they saw their reflections, they were
was a
new
different actor.
actors.
Okay, great.
But
That's fine.
the show, like, you saw the main characters navigating their world, but there's like a scene where they're trying to get into their car, and they're like, oh, I just forgot my keys, like, I do this all the time, and they're like trying to break into the car basically,
Right.
But then the cops pull up and see these African Americans breaking into a car, and then
Gotcha.
they go off on that, like the parallels and shit with society today. Like, there's a way to do the again, the political incorrectness by highlights.
Right, you don't just have to make boring jokes. You just have to be smarter about the
exactly.
jokes that you're making.
It's smart. That's the basis of what I'm trying to get at.
That's what it boils down to.
It's been a long day. But yeah, so the Jerry Seinfeld comedy hasn't gone that far. It just has stopped growing, and that's
Right.
not what comedy is. Comedy grows with society, because like Saturday Night Live, it's always doing like very political or like current things,
Right.
because there's always something to make fun of or like poke fun at or highlight today. Like, it's just, comedy is always growing.
Yeah, and so Jerry Seinfeld isn't, and he's so mad that people don't think his new stuff is funny.
Yeah.
Like, sorry.
It's like, just...
We want different stuff now.
And you would
We gotta
think,
get over
as
it.
somebody in the comedy industry who has, had a very successful run, would
Yeah.
probably be
It's
like,
notice. Like,
when
trends.
I was a kid and I was getting up on those stages and these comedy clubs and like doing my stuff, like looking up to other comedians, I was hoping one day I would get there, and now I'm here. So maybe those that found me funny once, like, I can step back and let them step up. Like,
Yeah, but he's not a generous
well,
person.
that's the problem.
On screen, anyway. I don't know the guy, but
Yeah, I don't know.
watching him interact with John Mulaney was
Yeah.
So that was that. It's not necessary to watch it. I think we
No,
covered it.
we covered probably
if you
every
need,
episode.
like, a really weird 22 minutes. I think it's gonna stick with me forever.
I
honestly,
think there are better things to watch.
Oh, there absolutely.
No. If you're
are.
looking for a weird 22 minutes of something, like
Great.
Dimension 404,
Okay.
like the
Yeah,
show
so you
that
know
I
what?
talked about back
No
in the day.
reason at all.
I wouldn't give it more.
Yeah,
you know.
it doesn't. We don't need to give Jerry Seinfeld more reasons to keep making that.
Right, and if it were only on YouTube, like,
Right, that's fine.
That's
YouTube
fine.
is a place for self-indulgent
That's what
passion
it's for.
projects, but not.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so that's that. I also, while I have you here, we have watched a lot of Buffy since the last time we talked about it, and there have been some like particularly notable episodes. Like when people talk about Buffy, these episodes come up. So I don't remember
where we left off.
right. I want to say it might have been like season 3.
No way.
I think it was a long time ago. Like I don't
So
know.
currently we're in season 6.
Right. I don't know if we ever talked about the initiative or about Riley at all.
I'm not sure.
Like, not super important.
Okay,
The
we
sort
can
of
give a
the-
brief
Yeah.
on it.
Like, the tone of the show sort of started shifting when we got into season 4, because Buffy's out of high school.
Yeah, she's in
so-
college.
Right, so we're not sitting directly on top of the Hellmouth anymore. Like, the formula has to change a little bit if we're not going to see Giles in the library and having to,
It's a shame.
You wanted to stay that
I
forever?
honestly, I wish they did this thing where they just didn't acknowledge that they were getting older, like all the cartoons I've ever watched do, and then
It's
they're just
7
stuck.
seasons of high school.
Yeah, like seriously.
Really?
I would have. I mean, granted, it's gone to some interesting places, but I did love, like, they're in the library, like the library, which is their
It was
the
their
places
hub,
they
like,
convene.
yeah.
Like, it just changes. So like you have Giles' house, or like the magic box, but
There's
there was
not, like-
something about the library
Yeah.
itself. Like, that's why they made it into an action figure playset.
Because it's very, like, aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
Like, it's
It
not
has
a
levels
typical high
and-
school library.
No.
Like, it's very cool.
I would have read more if that library was like that.
And it also, I mean, it gives Giles a very firm place in the show.
Yeah, and he's granted, it's called Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but you can't have a Slayer without a Watcher.
But I'm glad you know that.
Yeah. No, it's very clear from day one. And Giles.
He's amazing. Like, he's one of the best characters in the show.
Yeah, even, like, in an alternate universe where Hugh Laurie would probably be Giles.
Right.
Like, this version of Giles is just very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, Anthony Stewart Head is just, he's so good. And they sort of, like, they do a decent job of addressing the fact that once Buffy is in college and Giles is no longer the librarian at her high school, like, he sort of has to find a place to fit in. And
I believe throughout that transition, he effectively doesn't become, like, stay her Watcher.
Right. She sort of, not fires him, but she declares herself independent from
the council.
Yeah. And that includes him.
But he also quits from being
right
on the council.
I don't remember whose idea it is that she doesn't need a Watcher anymore, but it might have come with the whole quitting the council thing.
Probably, yeah, all a mixed bag.
Yeah, but I mean, he's such a good father figure.
He is.
He believes in her harder than anyone else on that show. So losing the library means that Giles is a bit at odds, and he's midlife crisising, and, you know, he sings in a coffee shop at one point, which is great.
Yeah, but, you know, the actor himself also sings.
Yeah.
He has some albums, so obviously you want to showcase that.
We're going to talk about singing more in a second, because one of the notable episodes.
Yes.
But that's in season 6. So, season 4, they're in college. We have this whole thing with the Initiative, which is like a military, like, covert ops operation that basically does what Buffy does, but...
Yeah, but they, they operate in the shadows, because, like, for not half the season, but it's a good portion of it, there are a bunch of these guys in, like, either all black or, like, military garb. Can't remember exactly, but
camo.
There's some camo and ski masks.
Yeah.
They're, like, just creeping around in the background and, like, show up at the ends of episodes and shit like that.
And I told you going into the season, I was like, there's going to be something that it's not going to get explained for a really long time, and it's going to drive you nuts, but I promise you they do explain it.
I'd imagine if you're going to focus that much on it, then yes. If it were literally just background, like, where two actors are in the foreground and it's focused on them, but then you see people in the background, that would have been cool, but that would have driven me nuts.
Right.
If it just kept happening.
Well, because Joss Whedon pulls that shit a lot, because then we get into season 5 with Dawn.
Yeah. So, just with season 4, Buffy, like, falls for one of the guys in the Initiative.
Without knowing it, obviously.
Yeah.
The Initiative, the other thing is that they sort of take the mythology out of what's happening. Like, so the way Buffy and the Scoobies tackle monsters is, you know, they read about them and they figure out what they want and what
again another reason why the
like,
library makes perfect sense.
Right. But the Initiative is sort of just like poking the anthill. Like, they're not really, like, Buffy comes into the Initiative and is like, what does the demon want? Because that's going to make it easier for us to find and catch. Right. Yeah, but the Initiative just sort of is like
hunt and kill, or hunt and subdue, capture, yeah. Because they're running their whole own agenda.
Of course they are.
Yeah, they're military. They're a faction of the government. Like, right. Yeah.
So the Initiative happens and then goes away.
Yeah, but the only real, and like, even the stuff, Adam was like this hybrid human soldier killer machine.
Demon thing.
The only important part of the Initiative is at one point they capture Spike.
Right.
And put an implant in his head so that he can't harm humans.
Right. Which
plays out later.
Changes his character. Spike has the slowest burn redemption arc that I have ever seen. And we're like a third of the way through the arc, I think. Maybe a little further. The other notable thing about season 4 is Willow and Tara.
Ah, yes.
So Willow...
Wow, season 4.
Yeah. So Willow has...
And I guess Anya.
Yeah, Anya. Yeah, she keeps becoming a thing.
She stays relevant.
Right. Willow gets way more involved in the witchy stuff. And through that, she meets Tara, another witch. And then she and Tara fall in love, and it's so cute. And Willow and Tara were the first healthy lesbian relationship on television, right?
Something
Isn't
like
that
that.
what you researched? It wasn't the first lesbian kiss on screen.
No, it wasn't.
But it was the first, it was the first kiss in a healthy relationship.
Yeah. And it wasn't, and it was filmed specifically this way, but it wasn't made a big deal.
Yeah, I was going to get
kissed.
to that when we talk about that episode.
All right.
So then season 5.
Season 5 happens, and
like, suddenly Buffy has a younger sister, and everybody is just proceeding as though in seasons 1 through 4, Buffy's had a sister the whole time.
Here's what happens. I'm not sure if it's the end of season 4. It probably is the opening of season 5. But Buffy is in her house with her mother, and they're having a conversation like they normally would.
It's the beginning of season 5 because I was waiting for it.
Okay. They're just having a conversation, and I'm pretty sure Buffy, or no, it's probably Joyce. She goes and opens one of these doors in the hallway that we've never been inside this room before, but she opens the door.
She says, if you're going wherever,
somewhere, take your sister. She opens the door, and Buffy has this sister, Dawn.
And they're both like, Mom!
Yeah.
End episode.
And that's it. And, like, part of my brain was like, okay. Now, I watched pretty closely.
And I didn't say anything to prepare you for Dawn like I did for the initiative because I wanted to see what your response was. Okay,
I thought possibly, because they've pulled it off a variety of ways in other shows.
Right.
But perhaps Dawn has existed throughout the show, but she was always not important enough, like Kim's dad in... Lane's dad, sorry.
In Gilmore Girls.
In Gilmore Girls.
Yeah. Or like Donna's sister in that 70s show.
Yeah, where like these characters exist, but they're not important to the plot, so we don't ever show them because that's one more body you gotta pay.
Right.
So like the door exists, the room exists. It's conceivable that she's just been there, and now because they found a reason for her, they're gonna use her. Then
all of a sudden, Michelle Trachtenberg is in every episode.
Harriet the fucking spy. Yeah, so she's in the entirety of the rest of the series.
And you kept asking me, you're like, no way. So she's just like in the rest of it.
Okay, and this is based on, there's another episode in season 4 where...
I think it's earlier. I think that one's season 3.
Okay, maybe it is season 3. But there's an episode where, and we were binging like a few episodes in a night. So we get to this one episode, and all of a sudden, it feels the same as every other episode. But then all of a sudden, this guy... Jonathan, yes, who we've seen before, he's in like this leather jacket. He's being real cool, and he's just like... handling shit,
and all of he's the Slayer, and he's the mayor, and he's a celebrity.
He's like doing real shit, and they've even changed the theme song.
Yeah, the opening credits. It's now him flipping through everything that Buffy used to be flipping through.
Yeah, all these actors are in this show, but Jonathan's like the star,
right?
And I'm just like, what the fuck is happening? And then
you thought it was like that?
I thought it was similar because that episode has already set rules in place, because the whole thing with that episode was he invoked this demon's powers to
alter perception,
become cool and do all the shit that he's done. So it altered the world around him. So in some way, I thought Dawn was another, demon device, as it were. And in a way, she is, but in an entirely different...
Spoilers for Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yes. So... I don't know. You explain it.
Okay. So
it just exhausts me.
Several episodes where Dawn is just a fact
of life,
of the show. Where Dawn has just been there the whole time, and everyone's talking about, oh, remember when Dawn was little and you guys did that?
They did
and
rely heavily on memories that we've never seen, so we can't really argue about it.
Right, and it was driving you insane, which was so funny.
What drove me more insane was that I kept asking you, is this forever now? Is this just the way it is? And you did say no initially, but then eventually you're just like, yeah, she exists until the end of the series.
She's just there forever. And the problem is that she's so fucking annoying.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to Dawn as who she actually is. But, like, yeah, so... And then the big bad for season 5 is Glory, who we find out is a god who's hell-bent on opening demon dimensions so she can return to her home or whatever.
Yeah, and she's looking for this key.
To do that, she needs a key, and these monks have hidden the key from Glory. And we get all the information about the key in the same episode that it is revealed to us that the way that the monks hid the key was they sent it to the Slayer in human form, and they had to make it so that the Slayer would protect the key with everything she had. So they sent her the key as a little sister. And they altered...
is genius.
It is genius. And they, like, altered her memories.
They altered
everyone's memories to create this human where there had not been a human before. Yeah,
she
Dawn
believes
had no
she's
idea.
real. She doesn't know she's the key. She thinks she's a 15-year-old girl who's
And, like, it
sister of the Slayer.
So this episode, Buffy starts figuring out that something about Dawn is not right. And she assumes that Dawn is, like, a demon sent to eat her family.
Right.
Because, you know, to be fair to Buffy, that's sort of the basic deal.
Yeah.
But she, like, confronts Dawn and is super, super mean to her. And Dawn is real creepy about it. It's a very creepy episode.
Yeah, and it's designed that way on purpose.
Yeah, so that when the reveal finally comes, that, you know, Dawn has no idea.
Yeah. Because I believe it's that episode where somebody does a spell to reveal things or
Buffy
something.
goes into a trance.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I can't remember why.
I think because she wants to see what's hurting her mom.
Ah, yes.
Because Joyce is also sick.
Yeah.
And Buffy assumes that it's a demon fucking with her mother.
Yes, so she goes into a deep trance to see this entity that she can't see in her realm, and then she, like, goes to Dawn's room, and it just starts, like fading in and out of, like, a storage room.
And then,
and then she sees Dawn, and Dawn is also flashing and fading in and out.
Right, as
like
she's
something's
not real.
wrong with her.
Yeah.
And there's a whole, like, side story with people who are, like, mentally insane from the look of it, and they're like, you're just a thing and you're not real. Like,
right.
They can't formulate the words.
But they get very scared when they see Dawn, specifically.
So, like, so it's a whole thing where, like, something's up with Dawn, and then we find out Dawn is the key.
Right. And one of the things that you had said was that you wished there had been more mention of the key before the episode, where we're like, Dawn's the key.
Yeah. It seemed very contained in the one episode, and maybe that was the purpose, because, like, I don't know, I think the key being a thread would have been better.
But I kind of like it the way that it was, because you're completely wrong-footed until the answer is given to you. Like, there's no way that you could put it together on your own. And I like that, because I think that, like, it's just when you start believing that, like, I guess this is just the way that it is now. Like, you're not sitting there thinking, okay, something's weird, we're gonna get it put together. Oh, we keep mentioning this key, I wonder if this new element is the key. Like,
yeah, I guess that's true.
I think it's perfect that it just all comes at once, just when you've accepted that this is just the way it is.
I do think the placement of the episode, it's far enough down the line that you're just like, okay, yeah, Dawn is now a character.
Buffy
She's even in the
sister.
Main credits. Immediately, where it took Anya, yeah, Anyanka,
right,
forever to be introduced in the credits.
So you're not thinking that Dawn is
you're just accepting it as your reality now.
Right.
And so, on one hand, yes, having it show up sort of out of nowhere, and then, you know, so you can't put it together immediately, it does play better.
And that's one of the things that I just creatively like about Buffy, is that the tool of even, like, the opening, like, the theme song with the video that's in it, like, Dawn being incorporated into the theme song right away, so that it adds to the feeling that she's been there the whole time. Or, like, with the Jonathan episode, when he was just, they use every element of the show to pull the story tighter.
It's true.
Like, it's a very well done.
It is.
Like, it's good storytelling.
It is. And the show, even, you know, being 6 seasons in, it doesn't really lose that momentum of, like, I want to keep watching this. Even, like, I mean, you get the Monsters of the Week episode where it's just one-off and there's no real plot as far as it's just like, oh, the Slayer is killing another demon. But then you get those episodes that just, like, are pretty powerful. Like, you know, for Buffy, like, knowing her sister is this key and that everything she thinks is a lie, but she still has felt so, like, protective of Dawn and everything like that. Like, she can't tell Dawn, so she can't tell really anyone.
She can't tell anyone because she cares deeply about Dawn, even knowing that those feelings are fake. Yeah. Manufactured. Yeah. And, I mean, that's one of the cool things about Buffy. Is that,
and it never stops.
No, all of the characters are very consistent. Mm-hmm. And they grow. Like, we were talking about Xander, how he's not so fucking god-awfully unbearable anymore.
He was awful in the beginning. I didn't understand. Like, I could understand why people would like him because he's, like, the nerdy guy who doesn't get the girl.
Again, talking about humor that doesn't evolve.
Again, yes.
Product
but
of its
there
time.
are many shows that I grew up watching relating to those characters and seeing it happen over and over. Mm-hmm. But the thing about his character was that he even gets a girl. It's not Buffy, but it could never be Buffy because that wouldn't work.
Girls like Buffy don't date nice guys.
Buffy's just complicated. She doesn't need to be in love with not even her best friend, but just a friend. Right. I lost my train of thought. But a girl, he gets the girl who's like the popular one, but doesn't even appreciate her. And then, eventually he grew up and then found Anyanka, who, he's definitely grown as a character. Right. And he's much more bearable now, even though what he recently did in the episode we watched sucks. Yeah. But there's a lot going on.
We have a lot more to talk about.
So, yeah. I don't know where you want to go from there.
All right. So, one of the notable episodes that we need to talk about was in season 5. And, like, when people talk about Buffy, there are a couple of episodes that come up. And one of them is The Body, which is the episode where Buffy's mother dies.
Yeah. So, as you said earlier, Buffy's mom gets sick with cancer.
Yeah.
There is a brain tumor.
Right. And, like, you know, you want to assume that it's a demon or somebody casting a spell, but it's not. It's just cancer. Mm-hmm. So Joyce, Buffy's mom, goes through, like, surgeries, and we assume radiation, probably. I don't know. Like, she's in the hospital for a while. But then she comes home, and everything seems like it's fine. Mm-hmm. And things go back into, like, the normal routine to the point where, like, I had told you that this was coming. Yeah. But it's still
a heavy episode.
At the end of the previous episode, because one of the times that I watched through Buffy, I just decided that I was going to skip The Body because I didn't need that in my life. Yeah. But at the end of the previous episode, Buffy walks in the house and yells for her mother, and we see in, like, the back of the shot that Joyce is on the couch not moving with her eyes open. Mm-hmm.
And Buffy's like, Mommy.
And then you start crying and you don't stop.
I did.
For a very long time.
I'm still crying.
I told you, like, every time I watch that episode, and it's been a couple times now.
And I was so blindsided by it.
Right.
You didn't warn me.
There's no reason for it to be that mean.
No. And so we get to The Body episode, and everything is different.
Right. So cinematically,
I believe it starts with that same shot of, like, her coming in and seeing the body, but it jumps to, like, handheld camera where it's, like, one long take of Buffy, like, going over, making, like, checking to see if her mom's awake or alive or anything like that. And then just the series of events that follow, where it's like Buffy starts losing it and like calls an ambulance and like goes and throws up, and like it's done in all real time. I think the whole episode only has 4 scenes. I read.
Like when she's on the phone with the EMTs, they tell her to do CPR. And the 2 notable things are that because she has Slayer strength, she breaks her mother's ribs. Presumably, we hear something that is probably that. And she also feels that her mother's cold. So then we're in this handheld. And
so we're just experiencing everything in real time, and it's so uncomfortable to watch, because this isn't, first of all, it's not like any other episode we've seen before, but it's also the content and now how Buffy is reacting to what's happened.
And she calls Giles and asks Giles to come over, and just says that it's an emergency and they're dealing with this big bad thing. So Giles comes like racing over. And I don't remember the specifics of their conversation, but I do remember her just breaking down and saying, "We're not supposed to disturb the body." It's awful. And Giles is just trying to be helpful. One of the other notable things about the episode, there is no background music the whole time. It's a very, like, clearly they were trying to do something with that episode.
It felt very real, like slice of life sort of thing. It wasn't, oh, the Scooby Gang is fighting demons this week. Nope, we're dealing with the death of... Oh, and the episode, actually, it starts out with a flashback of this dinner scene where, like, everyone's together and it's Thanksgiving or Christmas or something. And so it's, like, joy. And then we jump into present, which Joyce has died. And then we get the scene where Buffy has to go and tell Dawn. Ugh. So she goes to her school and, like... everything's normal in Dawn's world. Like, she's just in her art class, like, flirting with this boy. And then Buffy comes in, like, pulls her out of class. And then we just see from the perspective of, inside the classroom, Dawn just start, like, freaking out. Like, this isn't true. You're lying. And, like, just breaking down. And it's hard to watch.
And then one of the other scenes is at Willow and Tara's dorm. They're getting ready to go with morgue. Xander and Anya to the morgue. And Willow is just a mess because she doesn't know what to wear is what she is focused on, because what else do you focus on? I don't remember the exact order of events, but Willow and Tara's first on-screen kiss is during that scene. And Joss Whedon said that, the studio didn't want it there, but he was very passionate about the fact that that's where it should be, because that way it wouldn't be like, look, they're kissing. It was just a very natural moment for them to kiss. Because Tara, of course she would have kissed Willow.
She was trying to calm her down.
Out, And I pointed it out to you, and you were like, that's the first time we've seen them kiss? I was like, yeah, because at that point they've been in love and together for a very long time.
Yeah, I was mostly thinking I just had missed it at some point.
Right.
But that's the other thing is, like, they didn't make a big deal out of it, so it could have been the 100th time that they'd kissed.
And the other thing from that particular scene is Anya, who is ex-demon, newly human. One of Anya's character traits is that she doesn't know about, like, human niceties
or cues or
social
things like
cues and things. So she's asking these really, like, blunt and seemingly inappropriate questions, and, like, I think Willow yells at her to just stop, and then Anya just breaks your heart forever by just saying she's just trying to understand, and she liked Joyce, and now Joyce isn't there anymore, and she was eating eggs this morning, and Joyce will never eat eggs again. And
how could she just, like, leave her body and all this other stuff? And
right.
It's
That I think is where I cried
Yeah,
this
no,
time.
it's super upsetting.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're talking about it.
Sorry. But we get to talk about Once More with Feeling after this.
Yes.
So.
And so apparently that episode was written, obviously, I think either Joyce was, Joyce wanted to be done with the show, but Whedon was like, you can't be done with the show, I have to kill you, or something like that.
That sucks.
Yes, but the way the show is written and the way Buffy's reactions are based on his own
experience
when his mother died. And it is a pretty powerful, like, personal episode.
The problem, it's different than all of the other episodes, and it feels a little out of place.
Oh, it's definitely out of place.
Like, it doesn't fit the rest of the tone of the show at all.
Yeah.
Which is intentional.
Yeah.
Like, they did that on purpose, but you have to wonder why.
Well, I think it would be a little more forgivable if there were other episodes in each season.
Yeah.
That sort of... Because then you could place them in their own category of, like, Buffy episodes.
But it's
where
a
it's
one-off. Like,
Once More with Feeling and... what's that other one?
Tabula Rasa.
No.
The Jonathan one?
Yeah, and the one where they don't speak.
Hush.
Like, those are...
They're
gimmicky episodes,
to do
but they're definitely episodes that are designed a certain way.
They're cinematically interesting.
Yeah,
was the intent.
Yeah, like they were trying to do something different for telling their story, but they all fit in their, like, that category. Whereas this, although it was doing that, it feels very real.
And one of the great joys of Buffy is that it just never does.
And it shouldn't, but
it's not the point.
Yeah. It was very powerful.
Right. It's very artistic. It's very beautiful. Very, very poignant.
Yeah.
But it's like, why are they doing this?
Yeah. Why do this?
Why is Joss Whedon mean to me? Anyway, so that's The Body.
Yeah.
Season 5 wraps up. Oh, Buffy dies. That's kind of important.
Yeah, so Glory, which is that big bad, realizes Dawn is the key. It's going to open up this hell portal, and the only way to activate the key is to spill all of her blood. And as her blood is spilling, the only way to close the gate is for her to die.
Yeah,
or something like that.
I've never been real clear on the rules.
The blood in her body has to drain completely for her to die, or she has to be alive during the draining, or some weird shit like that. But Buffy, being the most dramatic person on the planet,
right, capital D dramatic,
and the older sister to a character that, you know, even though we haven't seen, has been in Buffy's life the whole time, decides, I'm gonna sacrifice myself. And because it's Summer's blood or something like that,
right? Yeah. Whatever.
To close the portal, and so she, like, does this swan dive off of this tower built by the criminally insane.
And it's so dramatic. It's a literal swan dive.
Honestly, Radioactive could have been playing.
Yeah.
It was like the 100.
Yeah.
And it
was
drama,
that level.
But she, does a swan dive, almost jumps and, does it.
And then she lands
in slow motion,
gracefully, beautifully, undamaged, but dead. And there's this real somber music, and everyone's on the ground, gathered around her, and it's like, Buffy's dead. Whereas Spike, who had just been pushed off, on a pile of bricks.
He lands on a pile of bricks 2 inches off the ground, and it's just
just wrecked,
just awful.
But then we see Buffy's gravestone. Buffy Summers, and then the
years,
dates, and
then she saved the world a lot.
And then we found out, because we did a little reading after that one, because it felt like a series finale. It easily could have ended. It could have been. And apparently it kind of was supposed to be, or it could have been.
Yeah.
So it changed networks after season 5. So Joss Whedon sort of wrote that one to be the series finale, but it wasn't. So,
it's kind of like what Brooklyn Nine-Nine just went through.
Got
like,
saved.
Its last episode was supposed to be its series finale,
Right.
which could have been fine. Like, that's how they said it. It's like, it's written so that, you know, if we don't get picked up again, we'll be fine. But
then 32 hours later, we're good.
So yeah, Buffy changes networks.
And it shows.
Yeah,
like,
there are definitely...
Season 6 feels real different.
Even with the monsters.
Yeah.
A lot of the production value has gone up a little bit. But, so...
We're probably, like, 87% of the way through Season 6.
Yeah.
We're almost done.
Yeah.
So there are some notable episodes. So first, obviously, we start off with the Scoobies deciding that Dead is not the place for Buffy Summers. So they bring her back.
Using magic. Horde
magic, because Willow is real into this magic stuff.
Oh, and there's like this side thing where, you know, it gets around that the Slayer's dead, and so these demons just start ripping apart Sunnydale.
Right, so when Buffy comes back, Sunnydale is, like, on fire, and also she has to claw her way out of her grave, because her friends did not think about the fact that when they brought her back, she would still be in her casket.
Yeah.
They're stupid.
Like, you should have thought that through.
Right. It was right there for you.
Yeah.
So Buffy's back. Bunch of random shit happens in Season 6. There's not, like...
she's gained, like... So, she's... weird when she comes back, as you would imagine. She's like virile almost. Feral, not virile.
I don't think that's the word.
Feral.
You meant,
sorry, I got there.
You did. Why did not you warn me?
Yes. And then she's like, sort of getting back to what normal is for her. But she's like, I was dead, and we find out.
Well, because her friends are all like, she could be in some horrible hell dimension. We have to rescue her.
And it turns out she was not.
She was
in her version of
heaven.
Which, like, why wouldn't, like...
Right. I mean, the only thing that you could possibly think is that because of the way that she died, because she, like, jumped into the portal.
Yeah, but her body was there.
Right. So, like, obviously, if
you've
her been body, watching the show,
if she
Buffy
dove
Summers
through that portal and her body was nowhere to be found, then I would assume she's in a hell dimension and should be brought back. If her body is there, 9 times out of 10, it's because she's in heaven. Just based in my expertise.
Right.
Yeah.
But Buffy, the only person she tells is Spike.
Yeah.
And then we get the episode Once More with Feeling, which is another one of the episodes that people talk about when they talk about Buffy.
Yeah. And it is a great episode.
It's the musical episode.
Yeah, like just about when musical episodes are becoming a trope in television.
But the very special thing about Once More with Feeling is that it advances the plot.
Yeah.
And the songs themselves advance the plot. Like, even in actual musical theater, a lot of the times the songs are just like a break from the plot.
Yeah.
But
they're more or less just like thoughts or feelings about what the characters are going through. But again, doesn't really advance the plot because you can kind of get the sense of what they're going through based on the scene that you've just watched.
Right.
Before
and then you
they
just
break.
Sing it and tap dance it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
it is a high-quality musical episode, which is not to be said about many musical episodes for television.
And it's not high quality because they're, like, all-star vocalists.
No.
Because they are not. But you can listen to them. It's not painful to listen to. And one of the things that I read about it is that was one of the most technically complicated episodes to do, because they had to give everybody special training to be able to do it, because these people were not hired to be singers.
Right.
And there were 2 actors that requested to not sing that much, but all of the main cast, they sung their own parts. They didn't have people like come in and voice over them,
which is cool.
Yeah, which I sort of thought was happening, because I mean, they clearly aren't singing live, which I know is a thing when you film things. You don't sing live, but they were obviously not actually singing.
Right.
Which, I only know because I do musical theater. But
yeah.
So what did you think of the episode?
I thought the episode was really good. Like you said, it does advance the plot, which is unique.
Yeah.
I was just sitting here thinking of all the musical episodes I've seen. Maybe the Even Stevens episode, Influenza, does it advance the plot. But then again, it's also a fever dream, so it's hard to say with that one. But
yeah, like with a lot of shows, you have to figure out how do you excuse the musical episode,
like in
so
Scrubs, there's something wrong with her brain, the patient, so she's interpreting everything as these actors or these doctors are singing. But yeah, the music doesn't so much advance the plot as it's just like fun music. Yeah, and I think the way in which it was, so like the reason that they're singing is because of this demon. Yeah. That I don't know his end game. I think it's just to watch the world burn. Basically. But so like you sing and you dance yourself to death.
Right, these people catch on fire.
Yeah, they tap dance and like burst into flames. Which is just
it's so Buffy.
It is. But I think the reasoning behind it, so like Xander was dicking around.
He thought they could all use a little fun.
Yeah, I thought that was a very cool,
it was cute.
Explanation for why it happened. Yeah. And yeah, the music is catchy. I love Spike's part. Yeah. He goes hard. He does, and it's very like, so he's a vampire and he's sort of this like, not grunge. He's like this bad boy in the leather jacket. He's like very, what? I don't know.
Who did you compare him to?
Billy Idol.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks a lot like Billy Idol. He's like metal-ish.
Yeah, like, just very 80s.
Yeah, very 80s rock metal. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like in one point he has like the leather jacket with the torn off sleeves.
Yeah.
Bleached blonde hair.
Right.
Like,
and like, yeah.
The like Mick Jagger body.
Yeah, but he's like singing in a graveyard. Yeah. Real dramatic, like.
It's very hardcore.
And then like the lines he's saying are like, I wish I had the lyrics in front of me, but something about like lying in my grave or some very on the nose shit. And it fits his character. And that was the other thing. All of the music and all of the things that they were doing still felt like their characters.
Yeah.
It was very consistent with how they would interact with shit. And yeah, it did feel like, and just another episode with the addition of singing.
Yeah, it didn't feel like that was just like the gimmick of the week. Like,
exactly.
It was just dropped in.
Right.
It felt very natural, which is hilarious.
Okay, the other thing that I just remembered that I loved about the episode was, so this was happening all over Sunnydale. So periodically, when the main characters are walking through the world, just having conversations, they would like walk into other people's musicals. There's like this one guy who has just gotten back from the dry cleaner, and they got the mustard out of his shirt,
and he's just having a huge moment about it.
And there's a bunch of dancers behind him, like it's a whole choreographed thing. Or there's this woman that just got a parking ticket, and they're walking past her, and she's singing about how this shouldn't have happened to her, and all this other stuff. And I just loved that, like,
it's beautiful.
All those moments, because like, yeah, the whole world is going through this. It's cool that, you know, even though these are the main characters in our story, everyone is the main characters in their own story.
Right.
And I dug that a whole lot.
I also loved how they addressed it, because like the first scene, we come in and Buffy's like out, you know, doing her patrol thing, and then she just like starts singing.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then at the magic box the next day, she's like, so did anybody else? And she's like, never mind.
Yeah.
Like, anybody break into song? And they're all like, yes,
you too. Like, oh god, I thought it was just me.
So funny.
It was amazing.
Yeah, it was just, and it also, like, we got some emotional stuff that came out. Like, that's how she reveals that she was in heaven to these people who thought that they were saving her by bringing her back. And,
right.
like, it's rough.
And even the demon that is in charge of all this stuff, I really dug his, like, sort of everyone gets their own style of music that they're embodying, more or less.
Jazzy.
And his is like jazzy, like he's the devil sort of thing. And I don't know. Even before this episode, I had always dug that sort of type of music. I don't know. Yeah. Just a good episode.
Very good episode. And there's that demon's entrance, how he like tap dances down the stairs. That happened in the Bronze. And Joss Whedon said that he constructed the set for the Bronze like that because he knew that he wanted to do that entrance at some point. He wanted somebody to like tap dance their way in down those steps. So that was his plan. Like, we're in season 6 now.
Yeah.
Like, that was his plan from very early on.
I'm glad he got there.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, season 6 is going to go to some crazy places. It has already started
More?
going to some deeply disturbing places.
Great.
But that I think we can cover after we finish it.
Yeah.
When you see
what's
exactly what's coming. Yeah.
Cool.
I
think that's going to be it for
like,
this.
I have a backlog of books and stuff.
And I have movies and TV I watch, but we covered a lot.
It's been like 2 hours. How long have we been doing this?
An hour and 20.
Oh, so
No.
great.
Yeah. But I'm ready for bed.
Yeah, I'm done.
Cool.
It's been
All right.
real.
It has.
All
It's
right.
been fun.
It hasn't been real fun. No, it has. It's been good.
So yeah, hopefully we'll do this another episode real soon.
We'll
since
do it
we
once
have
more with
contact.
Stealing.
I kept trying to think of the line that he says, because he says the name of the episode.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, we do have a lot more Buffy to cover and a lot more of content to cover.
Yeah.
And possibly a new podcast for me to create, so we'll see.
So get on that, babe.
I will.
All right. But
All
don't
right.
call it the Matthew Danko podcast.
No,
It's lame.
don't call it that.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
I've been your host, Matthew, the Doctor Danko. We try to do this, and it just never works.
I'm Hillary Crumb, and I forgot what we're doing here.
That's fine. Bye.
Bye.
Once the show ends, please don't shed those tears. We'll come back again, so have no fear. Oh, we told you that it just might end up this way. What's the show called again? You cannot be saying, why didn't you warn me? Why didn't you warn me now? Why didn't you warn me? Why didn't you warn me? Why didn't you warn me? Why didn't you warn me now?